the street where you live. It feels safe, familiar, a true community. You trust your neighbors. You share laughs, favors, and a sense of security. But what if that security is just an illusion? What if the person you trust most is the source of a danger you never saw coming? In the quiet suburbs, a story unfolded that shattered every assumption. Sometimes the greatest threat isn't a stranger. It's the one smiling at you from across the lawn. This was a neighborhood like any other. Kids on bikes, weekend barbecues, doors left unlocked. But beneath the surface, a darkness crept in, unnoticed. No one suspected the danger was already inside their homes. How could something so sinister take root in a place so wholesome? It starts with a smile, a gesture of kindness. The small, everyday acts that build trust. Cookies, watering plants, a friendly wave. But in this story, that trust became a pathway for something terrifying. How well do we really know the people next door? Behind closed doors, secrets can be far darker than we imagine. The perfect neighbor was about to become their worst nightmare.
He was always the first to volunteer for neighborhood watch, but sometimes I'd catch him just staring at people's houses. It gave me chills.
He once brought me soup when I was sick, but he always asked a lot of questions about my schedule, who lived with me. I thought he was just being friendly.
The neighbor everyone trusted, the one who seemed to care the most, was hiding something no one could have imagined. Martha Klein was the heart of Elm Street. Always ready to help, always smiling, she was the first to greet new families and the last to leave a community event. Her kitchen was the unofficial gathering spot, filled with the aroma of fresh bread and her famous chocolate cake. She remembered birthdays, helped with errands, and organized every block party. Martha was the glue that held everyone together. Need your mail picked up? Dog walked? Martha was there. She was more than a neighbor, she was an institution. On summer afternoons, she'd hand out popsicles to the kids playing in the sprinklers, her laughter echoing down the block. Every holiday, Martha would help string lights and decorate houses, making sure no one felt left out of the festivities. Her helpfulness was legendary, her kindness seemingly endless. When someone was sick, Martha would show up with homemade soup and a listening ear, always ready to share a story or a smile. In a world that often feels disconnected, Martha was a throwback to a time of true community. She was the perfect neighbor, reliable, thoughtful, and beloved. She'd host movie nights on her lawn, reading bedtime stories to the neighborhood kids as dusk settled in. But behind that warm smile, a chilling secret waited to be revealed. The Angel of Elm Street had a dark side. It started subtly. A string of odd illnesses swept through the neighborhood, but that wasn't all. Strange things began happening. Pets grew restless, lights flickered, and mail went missing. First, Mr. Johnson fell ill after the Memorial Day barbecue. Severe stomach pain, lingering weakness. Neighbors whispered about the sudden ambulance visit. Then the Miller kids, both sick with headaches and confusion after eating cupcakes. Their mother started locking the doors earlier each night. Mr. Henderson, elderly and frail, was hospitalized with sudden kidney failure. The sight of flashing lights outside his house left the block uneasy. The Garcias suffered debilitating fatigue after a potluck. That same week, someone's trash was mysteriously scattered across the street. Each case seemed isolated, easily explained away as bad luck or a passing bug. But late-night conversations grew more anxious, and some neighbors started installing cameras. No one connected the dots. Why would they? Still, a few began to wonder if something was wrong. The symptoms varied, but all were severe and persistent. The streets felt emptier. The laughter of children faded. Families shared stories in passing, but the true connection remained hidden. Some started avoiding gatherings altogether. The community was suffering, but in isolation. Anxiety crept in behind every closed door. The illnesses always followed neighborhood gatherings. Invitations were quietly declined, events canceled. The pattern was there, but invisible. A sense of dread settled over the block. A shadow had fallen over Elm Street. people hurried home, avoiding eye contact. The residents were too busy fighting their own battles to see the real threat. Fear and suspicion grew behind every window. The monster was already among them, and the neighborhood's unease was only just beginning. Carol, an ER nurse and longtime resident, began to notice a disturbing pattern. She found herself replaying recent cases in her mind, unable to shake the feeling that something was off. At first, she dismissed the illnesses as coincidence, even telling a coworker, "It's probably just a bad flu season, right?" But her colleague's uncertain shrug only deepened her unease. But after the Labor Day potluck, her neighbor David landed in her ER with symptoms eerily similar to others. Carol's mind raced. This was no ordinary bug. Carol recalled that each sick neighbor had eaten Martha's food. She started to see a thread connecting them all. She started a quiet investigation, piecing together a timeline. Late at night, she'd sit at her kitchen table reviewing every detail. The Miller kids? Martha's cupcakes. Carol remembered the mother mentioning how excited the kids were to try them. Mr. Henderson? Meals from Martha. Carol jotted down the dates, her suspicion growing. The Garcias? Martha's iced tea. She overheard them raving about it just days before they fell ill. The connection was undeniable and terrifying. Carol's heart pounded as she realized what this could mean. Could Martha, the beloved neighbor, be responsible? Carol replayed every friendly interaction, searching for clues she might have missed. Carol felt guilty even considering it, whispering to a colleague, "What if it's not just bad luck?" But the evidence was too strong to ignore. The illnesses always followed Martha's generous offerings. Carol's mind replayed the scenes over and over. She had access, opportunity, and trust. Carol's list grew longer with each passing day. Carol knew she had to act, even if it meant risking everything. Her conscience wouldn't let her stay silent. She reached out to affected families, urging them to speak to doctors and authorities. "Please, you have to tell someone what happened," she pleaded. The lives of her neighbors depended on it. Carol knew she couldn't rest until the truth was uncovered. With Carol's suspicions, a quiet but determined investigation began. Detectives moved carefully, collecting evidence from the homes, while neighbors watched in anxious silence. Doctors pored over medical records, searching for a common thread. Families of the victims gathered in hospital corridors, desperate for answers as their loved ones suffered. New toxicology tests were ordered, and the results were chilling. Ethylene glycol, the main ingredient in antifreeze, was found in the victims' bloodstreams. The poison was sweet, odorless, and deadly, easily concealed in food or drink, and nearly impossible to detect without specialized tests. The symptoms, nausea, confusion, kidney failure, matched perfectly. For the families, each new diagnosis brought fresh waves of fear and heartbreak. This wasn't a virus. It was deliberate poisoning. The realization shattered any sense of safety the families once had. The community's trust had been weaponized, leaving everyone to wonder who could be responsible for such betrayal. The shadow over Elm Street now had a name, and it haunted every home. The monster was real, and the poison was in their veins. The families could only wait, hoping for justice and praying for survival. The question was no longer what, but who. And for the families, the search for answers had become a desperate fight for closure. With the poison identified, the police initiated a meticulous, round-the-clock surveillance operation. Martha Klein, once the heart of the neighborhood, was now under constant watch, her every move scrutinized by both police and wary neighbors. Officers rotated shifts in unmarked cars, using long lenses and hidden cameras to document Martha's routines. Her grocery runs, time spent in the garden, and every delivery she made to neighbors' doorsteps. Undercover officers coached families to accept Martha's food with a smile, then quietly hand it over to police for analysis, never letting their suspicions show. The neighborhood became a stage, every interaction a careful act. Neighbors exchanged forced pleasantries, masking their anxiety as they played their part in the investigation. In the background, forensic teams worked quickly, testing each dish for toxins. A lemon pound cake and iced tea soon tested positive for antifreeze. Officers sifted through Martha's trash under the cover of darkness, uncovering empty antifreeze containers, critical evidence for the case. The operation tightened. Police mapped Martha's movements, cross-referencing timelines and evidence, ensuring no detail was missed. The means, method, and opportunity were all falling into place, but the team needed undeniable proof. Hidden cameras were installed in kitchens and porches, while officers watched from behind blinds, waiting for Martha to slip up. Tension simmered throughout the community. Neighbors whispered behind closed doors, torn between fear and the need to help catch the culprit. The perfect neighbor's mask was slipping, and everyone was watching for the moment it would fall away. Trust had become a weapon, and the tension among those watching was as sharp as the danger itself. The watcher was being watched. Every strategy, every glance, part of a high-stakes game of cat and mouse. The moment arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. As Martha wheeled her recycling to the curb, unmarked police cars blocked her driveway. Detectives approached, their faces grim. Martha's confusion turned to cold realization as she was arrested. Neighbors watched in disbelief as the heart of their community was led away in handcuffs. There was no struggle, just eerie calm. The Angel of Elm Street's secret was finally exposed. The aftermath was shock, betrayal, and fear. How could the woman who cared for them be the one making them sick? Investigators believed Martha suffered from a psychological disorder, craving attention by creating crises. She used trust as a weapon, turning kindness into danger. This chilling tale is a warning. Evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it wears a friendly smile. The perfect neighbor may be anything but, and you may not realize it until it's too late. In the weeks that followed, the courtroom became a stage for the community's pain. Reporters filled the benches, neighbors sat in stunned silence, and Martha faced the charges with a stony expression. Testimonies revealed the depth of her deception. Friends and neighbors, once her biggest supporters, now struggled to reconcile the woman they knew with the crime she committed. When the verdict was read, a heavy silence fell. Justice was served, but the wounds in the community would take far longer to heal. In the aftermath, neighbors leaned on each other, trying to rebuild trust. The shadow of Martha Klein's betrayal would linger, a reminder that sometimes the greatest dangers hide in plain sight.